5 captains that in power alone rival the entire Gotei 13. These legendary individuals hinted at since the Turn Back the Pendulum arc have arrived to our story in a quite literal abrupt manner to take Ichigo, Rukia, Byakuya, and Renji up to the mysterious royal palace that Aizen so long sought after. A brand new squadron, history amongst the captains that has anyone into lore freak out upon hearing, and a confirmation on Ichigo's family heritage. Oh boy, we have a lot to talk about. This episode moved a lot faster than I anticipated, and it progressed the story to take us from Sarate to the Royal Palace and even the hot springs all within a 20-minute time period. There indeed were some comedic moments cut out, and I've already heard the lamentations of Rukia's Peach not being animated, but it's clear what the studio is intending. There are only 13 episodes total within this core, so the elements of the story that within the manga were more so comedic relief, they were cut to keep the pace of the story elevated and to enable within the first core for us to reach a logical stopping place, with it ending likely at the conclusion of The Blade is Me. My god, when that's animated, I know it's going to break the internet, and those chapters are some of my favorite of this entire arc. However, we're getting sidetracked. With the episode's opening, there's a poignant conversation with Isane and Unohana regarding them having to stay within Squad 4 barracks during the battle. Isane is haunted by the fact that they could have potentially saved more lives, but Unohana reminds her that they can't let emotions dictate their actions. The last and final order Yamamoto gave to them was to remain there, and Yamamoto would never give an order without pure intention. The sadness and grief felt through this conversation exudes the theme of the first half of this episode. All the Gotei is grieving, and within the meeting of the remaining Gotei 13 captains who can still stand, emotions get high, particularly within Soifon, whose emotional outburst is something we can all relate to. Their father figure within Yamamoto wasn't just killed in battle, but his body was destroyed completely, leaving next to nothing behind. These captains look to Yamamoto as a father, as someone who stands as their bastion of hope. But he's gone now, and they have to live with what happens afterwards. This is war, it's brutal. However, Soifon isn't the only one grieving despite the others not being as expressive, and I loved the intense and emotional voice acting from Komomura as he emphasizes this very point. All the captains are indeed struggling. Soifon is the youngest captain within her tenure, so her lack of restraint within her words is a notion that I find paramount importance because it's real. It's grief. Everybody expresses it differently. With Shunzui's eventual arrival, despite him being the closest to Yamamoto, he carries with his steps confidence and determination as he takes on the role of calming the captains down and reminding them of the very purpose of the Gotei 13. The Gotei was created to protect Soul Society, and that sure as hell isn't going to change now that Yamamoto is gone. This maturity within Shunzui is something not inherently uncharacteristic for him, but it differs from his usual relaxed demeanor. With Yamamoto's death, he understands he needs to step up and be a leader, someone who the rest of the captains can rely upon. Shunzui as a character has long fascinated me, and within this arc he solidifies himself as a top 5 character, but we'll get to that another time because I could talk all day about the intricacies of our Kyoraku. Within this episode, we finally get to see Ichigo and Rukia have a conversation, and Rukia picks up on the fact that something's bothering Ichigo that is further beyond the loss of battle. Since the very genesis of our story, there's been no one who can read through Ichigo better than Rukia, and her role as a deuteragonist and supporting character for Ichigo has always been such a superb spot for her to fill. She's someone who can perceive Ichigo in his truest sense, without the mask and walls he puts up, and it's crazy to think that despite being hospitalized, she was able to read him with just a few moments of their interactions. Despite Ichigo's mental state, he has little time to reflect, however, as he soon learns that his Zanpakuto when broken within the Bankai state cannot be fixed or restored. It can only be reforged, which sets into motion a recovery and training arc that soon transpires as all the captains in Ichigo stand to witness the arrival of Squad Zero. Squad Zero arrives seemingly from the heavens, and I had chills upon the statement that despite there being only 5 of them, that their power rivals that of the entire 13 court guard squads. In retrospect, after finishing the manga, I feel this statement lends a bit too much credit to Squad Zero, but nonetheless, the concept is incredible. This squad was hinted at well over 200 chapters ago, and it's amazing to see that Kubo had these individuals in mind years and years prior to them ever coming into the story. It's genuinely masterful writing. Within Squad Zero is Hikafune, who was the previous captain of Squad 12 that was mentioned in the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, Shutara, Namaya, Tenjiro, and my personal favorite, bald-headed Ichibei. Immediately upon the arrival of Squad Zero, it's clear how much history they have within the Sarate, with Hikafune catching up with Shinji despite her apparent weight gain, Shutara with Mayuri, and most importantly Tenjiro with Unohana, who learned healing from Tenjiro himself. Of the captains catching up, however, the discussion of Unohana and Tenjiro was the most important, with him telling her what she should be doing isn't healing anybody, instead something else which she knows all too well. Manga readers, I tip my hat to you all, and my anime onlys, oh boy, you just wait. The dynamic of Squad Zero with their respective associates within the Gotei, the relationship comes across as an older sibling and younger sibling, as clearly there's levels to their rank, which Soifon unfortunately isn't aware of. Personally, I loved Soifon's outburst once more yelling at Squad Zero because she serves as the audience to an extent, with their lamentations clearly not knowing how Squad Zero operates, and it results in us being told that Squad Zero exists to protect the Royal Palace, not Sarate, which is why they didn't aid in the initial invasion. What Squad Zero also informs us is that they're taking Ichigo, Rukia, Renji, and Byakuya up to be healed and have Ichigo's Zanpakuto reforged. And before they depart, we get a nice surprise from Urahara, who in abrupt fashion projects himself from Kone's head to say hi, but most importantly to let Ichigo know that he isn't forced to do anything, that he should decide what he wants to do for himself. Clearly there's concern within Urahara's statement despite him joking within the next sentence, but it's poignant with the development of Ichigo. Ichigo needs to make the decision himself, and despite the decision being obvious, his free will within it is a defining moment. Ichigo's choice will always lead to protecting everyone in the end. During the conversation with Urahara, we do briefly get to hear a familiar voice, and given we can hear who it is, I'm not sure if it's a spoiler to say, but let's just say he's a fan favorite. I genuinely bursted out laughing watching Orihime throw salt at him to try to keep him back like he's a demon in a scary movie. The episode soon progresses extremely fast, and we get to see one of the original waifus of the story within Kukaku Shiba as she sends them up to the royal palace. As a confirmation of the foreshadowing from years and years ago, she monologues that Ichigo had to go there even if it makes their uncle sad, in reference to their uncle being Isshin. Since Byakuya battled Ichigo outside of the prison Rukia was held in for execution within the Soul Society arc, there was indication that Ichigo reminded Byakuya and Ukitake directly of someone, and that someone is indeed Cayenne Shiba. He's Ichigo's cousin after all, and it's great to see this revelation finally being confirmed within the anime, and it adds even more depth to Ichigo's clouded family history. Also, did you all see my cousin Tsukishima walking around? The Royal Palace was beautiful to see animated, and I'm excited to see the 5 cities for each of the Squad Zero members. It's a really fascinating concept that they each get their own city, and for the training arc, we'll get to see each of their cities individually. Ichibei gives us some fascinating information as well regarding the Oken being the bones of Squad Zero, and that Aizen was trying to recreate Squad Zero essentially to enter Soul Palace. And despite his goal seeming evil, Ichibei informs Ichigo that the Quincy are far more evil than Aizen, and I love this statement. I've always found Aizen to be a villain who is so compelling not just because of his swagger, abilities, and design, but also due to his goal being understandable. He doesn't want to be ruled over by anyone, and I think we can all relate to that. We get these little tidbits of Aizen having these elements of gray, perhaps swinging towards the side of good with him denying Yhwach, and additionally with the reference here, it sets up some amazing foreshadowing that he isn't out of our story for good. This episode soon reaches its conclusion within the hot spring as we soon learn how Tenjiro uses the hot spring to help our hurt allies recover, despite his reckless throwing around of our poor man Byakuya. After the ending credits, we do get a great reveal of us finally seeing the Soul King, and upon first seeing the Soul King, he wasn't remotely what I expected, and I believe that's intentional. We as humans put gods and kings on such a pedestal, but in reality, they often don't meet the picture we paint in our own head. This episode was definitely a setup episode, and of course it didn't match the hype of the previous 2, but that's more than okay because we get so much lore and new information shared with us this episode. More importantly than lore, however, we get to see the grief of the captains and the brave face they have to put on despite all of their world seeming to crumble around them. As well, the hype of Squad Zero upon their initial introduction was immense, and I hope the anime does all of them justice in the best way they can, but I can guarantee that as overwhelming or underwhelming depending on your view as Squad Zero is, Ichibei will stand tall amongst the rest and be solidified at the end of this arc as a GOAT. If you enjoy my content, please do consider dropping a subscription. We cover Bleach every week, so if you're a fan of Bleach, this is the right place for you. Most importantly, let me know in the comment section below your favorite moments of this episode. My favorite moment of this episode was Shunzui's discussion of the purpose of the Gotei 13 to remind his fellow captains what they're all there for. This has been hiXtrah, and as always, be greedier, and I will catch you all next time.